Okay. Hello.
Hi.
So I am so happy that you're on my podcast, and I am super grateful that you wanted to be part of it. And here we are, we're making this happen. It's been like really interesting having people on chatting about different topics, and it's just kind of fun to have these conversations. And I've also like realized that people are actually listening to my podcast. Like I wasn't sure, when you put something out there and you're like, oh, is
Yeah,
somebody gonna listen? And people are, so it's really cool. So
that's awesome.
yeah. So do you want to just like briefly introduce yourself to the audience?
Absolutely. My name's Tatiana. I'm 30 years old. I used to say I'm a life coach. I am not sure anymore. So I go without a title. I'm just me. I don't need a title. I don't need anything. I'm just me.
That's awesome. And I think that, that's okay. There's sometimes we go into like one field thinking and expecting one thing, and then it
Mhm.
turns out that we actually want something else. And
Yeah, I think you helped me realize that because for the people watching, we used to do coaching together. And I remember something you said that, I mean, I don't think I've actually told you, but it stayed with me. It's really why you're trying to fit yourself into a box because I discovered all these, like the Enneagram and being a highly sensitive person and all of that. And what is it called? Human design and
yes.
all that stuff. So I was trying, I think all my life, I felt like I didn't fit into a box. And I started finding boxes that I felt like I fit in. But then I started boxing myself in too much, So just having a title or attaching my identity to these things, to like either a life coach or like I'm a manifesting generator, or I'm this or I'm that, and something you told me, it was a question you asked me. You said, what, maybe you don't need to box yourself in or like attach yourself too much to those things. And it really helped me go with the flow and be like, you know what, I'm just me. I'm a little bit of a lot of things. And so yeah, so now I'm like, I just identify really just with myself, and I try not to put labels on anything because like you said, it can always change.
Yeah, and I love that you brought this up because I do think that we all put ourselves in boxes. And I do that too. Sometimes I'm like, oh, like as a projector, I can't be doing this. But then I
Mm-hmm.
have to reel myself in and be like, am I using the can't do because I'm attaching it to a box, like such as
Yeah.
being a projector or being a Scorpio
Mm-hmm.
or whatever it is? Or is
Mm-hmm.
it something that's not in alignment? Or is it something in an alignment, but I'm not ready for it and I'm hesitant?
Yeah.
And it's always good to just check in with ourselves and our body of like what we want to do and why we want to do what we want to do instead of,
Exactly.
being kind of like, oh, okay, this is like, I can only do this because this is what human design says, or this is what astrology says, or this is what, hypersensitive people are supposed to be. But the minute you do that, then you're just using certain things as excuses
Yeah,
versus,
you
yeah,
use things that are meant to just help you understand a little bit of yourself or how you work, and then you use that almost as a crutch, as a crutch or as an excuse, to do certain things or to not do certain things. So I think it's important, like you said, yes, you learn about yourself, but also like don't attach yourself to those things or don't box yourself in. Like you said, I can't do this because I'm a management or a projector.
yeah, exactly. And it's like, and I find that one thing that human design says, and I think that this should be applied to all tools that we have, because right now there's so many tools, but human design says it's an
Mm-hmm.
experiment and you're here and it's all trial and error, and doesn't mean that, all the things are going to work or not work for you. And that
Mm-hmm.
should be a blanket statement for everything, like all the tools that exist, because there are many tools that are here to help us better understand ourselves, but it shouldn't limit us. It shouldn't put us in a box. It shouldn't prevent us from doing something we really want to do. Like sometimes I remember people saying, like, well, I can't, you know, do XYZ because I'm XYZ, like, using things such as like ADHD or other
Mm-hmm.
disabilities, but also like and not necessarily always disabilities, but different things that they're just limiting themselves. And it's like, I get it because I have a hearing loss too, but I don't limit myself because of that.
Yeah, I think that we maybe limit ourselves when we're not, we're not giving the right tools when we're young in terms of spirituality and knowing yourself and your purpose in life and all those things. And then we start getting into personal development and find all these tools. And then unconsciously, we start limiting ourselves, but we don't think we are. We think we're just discovering all this new stuff. And we're like, oh my God, where has this been all my life? And now I understand this and I understand this. And I think that, at least from personal experience, I went from like not knowing myself to now like discovering all these tools that can, help me understand myself. But then I realized I was using them too much to a point where I was boxing myself in, or I was, um, it's very unconscious. You think you freed yourself if you want from all the like society standards, and you're like, oh no, this is what will help me in life, and then you realize sometimes you use them too much, or you're limiting yourself, like you said, with these things, but it's unconscious.
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah. You're not always aware of it. And this is why it's so important of going back in. And it can be as simple as like, I don't feel like it. It doesn't feel right.
Mm-hmm.
Like you don't need to actually justify why
Yeah.
you don't want to do something or why you do want to do something if it's just a feeling,
Mm-hmm.
because that's the
Yeah,
intuition, and the intuition doesn't need justification. It just is something.
exactly. And those are tools. They're not who you are. They're things to help you understand maybe some things about yourself, but they don't define you. So I think it's important to use them as tools and not to use them as who you are. Like you identify too much with those things.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And it's really interesting because even with these tools, it's like not only do we limit ourselves, but I find it's also like how we view others as well
Mm-hmm.
and put them in boxes. Like the amount of
Yeah.
times everybody asks me, what do I do? And I have yet to find, I guess, the right, like, simple like catchphrase. And I do say life coach. I do say life coach. Sometimes I'll say spiritual coach, depending on like who's in the room, because I know people understand the term life coach, but then at the same time,
Yeah.
I get the like automatic like first impression of that.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, I remember that, like when I used to say it, before it was always like a life coach. I remember just it didn't feel right because, or I felt almost judged, even though the person didn't make me feel that way, because I knew the stigma around life coaches, especially with the industry right now. It almost made me feel weird using that.
Yeah.
So, but I think it's like, to your point, it's hard to find a sentence or just something that'll define you, because I don't think there is. I think it's just we're very complex human beings. So I think it's hard because all of our life we've been, or like we define in society people by what they do in life, like their job or their career. And when you don't want that to be your sole identity, it's hard, because what do you say when somebody asks you, who are you? Or like, tell the world, who you are, and just introduce yourself. And you're like, there's so many things that I can't say it in one sentence.
Yeah, exactly. And it's like sometimes I get the two responses of like, oh, like what do you do? Oh, life coach. And I'll get the, oh, okay, cool. And then that's it. Conversation ends. They don't ask anything more for whatever XYZ reason. Or I get the other end and it's curious, like, okay, well, what exactly do you do? And this is great because I prefer that, because now I can
Mm-hmm.
actually explain it. And depending on who I'm speaking to, whether they are spiritual or not, I can adjust
Mm-hmm.
my examples accordingly, because you don't have to be spiritual to understand what I do.
Mm-hmm.
And but it's, yeah, it is very tricky because I find that if they don't ask, I feel like it's like, oh, the wall has been like put up. And there's nothing wrong with that. I'm like, I trust the universe. I trust like, whatever it's meant to be. But at the same time, my like little me is like, but it's not what you think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, for sure. I felt that way so many times. But like you said, even if somebody asks you, okay, so what do you do? It obviously depends. Every person works with different kinds of people, like as a life coach. But even then, I had a hard time explaining, because I was like, well, it depends. like I don't do one thing. You know, you work with people and it also depends, it depends how you work, but sometimes it's like, okay, well, this person, this is her situation, her life, this is who she is. So we'll be working on certain things, and then this other person, it's something else. And obviously, I think that I mean, working with you and you talking to me about it, you saw a pattern in people, so you're able maybe to define, because you were focused on one thing when you were working with your clients, and then you realize it all stems from you know, you saw the pattern in people,
Yeah.
like, okay, I want to talk about like money or whatever, but actually it's not about this. I see that everybody, actually their issues come from their childhood or whatever it is, you know. So I think it's hard, even though you can see a pattern, it's hard to explain, okay, I do this and this is all I do, because it's never this is all I do. It's, there's so much to it.
Well, yeah, and it's even as much as I think I was like chatting with someone the other day, it's like as much as I plan my sessions, sometimes the sessions go like completely 360 of what I planned. And in an area that I don't normally coach in, so to speak. And but it's going with the flow, and it's trusting that the right people will find you. The right people will resonate with what you talk about, what you know, what you coach on, what you do. And so sometimes, like, as much as like we are in a society with labels, we have to kind of accept that in some form, but then at the
Yeah.
same time release it.
Yeah, because we're, as humans, we're very complex, you know, beings, and also the human experience is, it's very like, it's a broad thing. It's very complex. It's many things. It's not just one thing. So you just, you know, the foundation of, let's say, your coaching is the same, but like you said, it could go many different ways you didn't plan.
Yeah, exactly. And there's so many coaches on everything and anything, right? There's like coaches that
Yeah,
focus on building programs. There's ones that focus on selling. There's one that focus on money. It's fitness, lifestyle, goals. Like there's accountability coaches. Like there's so many.
yeah.
And yeah, it is really cool that there's like all these avenues, and depending on where you are at. Because I know there's certain seasons of life of when I'm where I'm at that sometimes I need more of one thing than another.
For sure. Because I mean, it's constant fluctuation in your life. It's not the same, and yeah, I don't think it's something that, I think needing help from a coach or just anybody, you know, just even personal work and evolving and growing, it's just, it's never going to stop, and it's always constantly evolving, and sometimes you come back to something you thought you got over, you know, 3 years ago, and then all of a sudden you're back to it. So I think, like you said, different seasons of life, you need guidance for different things. So yeah, it's really cool that you have somebody that you can go to for pretty much anything at this point.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, like any whatever wherever you are at. But one thing I do want to like kind of bring up, and I don't know if you've experienced this, but sometimes like I'll get in the space of like I want to invest in all the things and work with all the coaches, and I feel like I need to reel myself in because it comes from a place of like need versus like a desire. Have you experienced that too? Like
I think it's more of
self-development?
a, all of a sudden I want to fix my, like, let's say I'm in a rut and I'm like, okay, well, I need to completely change my life and I need to do this and this, because all of a sudden, you know, I just get a burst of, you know, middle life crisis or whatever you want to call it, which is not, but you know what I mean? It's like, okay, all of a sudden I need to better this in my life, and this, or this coach does this, and then this with money, and this the relationships, and this with work, and you know, and all of a sudden you're in your head, you're going to work with all these coaches and change your life completely in 3 months, which is not realistic. And also you're going to do everything not even halfway. You know, you have to focus on something, you know, one thing at a time or two. So yeah, I totally get it. Sometimes I'm like, okay, I need to change everything.
Everything. Yeah. And in kind of like segueing into that, like what was like one of those like pivotal moments in your life where you felt like, oh, I need a shift in my life in the way like I've been navigating, the way I've been doing everything. Has there been like pivotal moments?
uh, I think I've had plenty. Honestly, there's been a lot. There's been a few, obviously, when, I mean, you know this, but when I had cancer, when I got diagnosed, I was 24, and it completely changed my life. Like it stopped everything, and all of a sudden I was just off autopilot and aware of so many things. And I was like, oh my God, okay. It's just like when everything, like whatever you thought was real or whatever perception you had of your reality, everything crumbles. You're left with, just and at that moment, survival was my only focus, if you want, or just my
Yeah.
health in general. So
Yeah.
for sure, there when I was just like, oh shit, okay, I've been doing this all wrong. It kind of helped me realize a lot of things. But I've had, many times where all of a sudden I'll have it down and I'm like, okay, this is not working. I think mostly is when you go into a season of being an autopilot and either shoving things down, your emotions, or you're just like, okay, I'm just gonna focus on this and not think about it, or I can't handle these emotions. So you just, try to push them out, and then all of a sudden it just like it forces itself out
Yes.
because it's too much. So I've had a few of those.
Yeah, no, I could definitely relate to that. And that's why every time like I get now a breadcrumb of like slowing down, I'm like, oh, I'm grabbing that and I'm slowing down.
Hmm.
Now it's like, okay, let's slow down because I don't want like something like that's like even like more like, kicking the ass to slow down. So now I like listen
Yeah.
right away, like versus like before I would like kind of push it aside, push it aside, push it aside. And then there'll be like that one major thing of like, oh, I have to face this. I have to like look at this. And so
Yeah.
it's one thing I've kind of learned through my journey. But again, like that can change in a couple of years too, like or even in a year from now. Like who knows?
Yeah, I was gonna say I think it's something that you learn the hard way if you want, as you go through life and as it happens to you a few times, you're like, okay, fine. Like
Yeah.
now you're aware, and you're aware of, your limits, and when something is, it's something small, but still you should pay attention to it, or something that it's not that important, that you can just deal with it, quickly, and then just put it to the side. And then when it's something that you need to dig deeper, because that if you don't, it'll just, get bigger and bigger and then explode.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. And it's just like a matter of like right now it is like it was a hard like learning a hard way of oh shit, like this happened, that happened, like went through all these like shitty things. And I not that I am trying to control not going to that, but like it's like if I can like catch the slowdown, if I can, be more self-aware of myself and my surroundings and like, what the breadcrumbs from the universe are, then that is like the dance that I would like play. And however, whatever life throws at me, I'll play that dance. Because
Yeah,
I,
and I think it's something that's hard to learn because we so want to be focused and going, and we learned, especially, as women, to, like, oh, you can do anything and you can be everything and just go 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 and get done as much as you can, and you know just to try and always aim for get it, having everything we want and the best and all that stuff. That I feel like we were focused on that, and we weren't really given the tools to be like, okay, it's okay for me to slow down and to actually choose what I want, not to be forced into, oh, you should want success and you should want this and just go for it. I feel like we were blindly, at least my personal experience, I was blindly like into like, oh yeah, I'm a woman, I can do anything. And then I didn't really listen or even ask myself, what do I actually want? Do I even actually want to, be CEO of something, let's just say, like, and I realized I don't. That's not the kind of life I want. I need to slow down. I need to listen to myself. And when you're in those moments where you're not really being self-aware or just intentional with what you're doing in your daily life, that's when I feel like you don't see those breadcrumbs, and then all of a sudden they're so big you can't ignore them. So I've learned to slow down and see those breadcrumbs and ask myself questions, and check in with myself and the people around me, and just make sure that I'm not just going blindly.
yeah, exactly. And I feel that strongly, especially like recently, like I find that the beginning of summer was very fast paced and for me like on all fronts, like I was doing things with my business, I was going out and playing and having fun and doing all the things, and it was great, like I loved it, it was very fast paced. And then it slowed down about like 3 weeks ago, And it was like almost a slowdown of like I didn't record as many podcast episodes. Like I actually stopped recording. I stopped showing up on Instagram as much. And it still is a battle. It still is that battle in the head of like, oh, like, am I slacking off? Am I not, like kind of like, am I not doing the work I need to do for my business? Like, and it's kind of coming back and honoring and seeing like, no, there's a reason why I'm slowing down now. I don't know, like I haven't gotten to the end of it, but there's a reason why. And I need to trust myself on that. Trust myself that it's like you don't have to go, go, go all the time and be that girl boss, like the go-getter, right? And I think like as you were saying about like, as women, like we've been taught to go into more that masculine energy, but not allowing that space to chill.
Absolutely. I think that when I learned what even masculine and feminine energy was, and I started looking into it, my life made so much sense. Like even how I felt and how I operated, I just realized that it was so true. I was so in my masculine energy, and I think it's a pattern in a lot of women. That we were kind of pushed into that masculine energy, and we really put our feminine energy to the side, or we saw it as 1950s or whatever. You know what I mean? Like we saw it maybe as not good, or as if we should try to be more into the masculine energy. And I feel like now I crave it a lot more, and I have accepted, and I'm transitioning a lot more into being, having a balance obviously, but more into my feminine energy. I think it's really been a game changer for me, and it's also helped me. And I think maybe you've experienced it too from what you're telling me. um Maybe getting rid of the guilt of when you slow down, which is very hard, but it's just accepting that and being okay and actually liking it, that life is not linear. When you have a business or just in life in general, it's not going to be a straight line up. It flow. You go with the flow. The expression "go with the flow," that's literally it. Sometimes it's going to go faster, sometimes it's going to go slower, and that's okay, and it's a good thing, because if not, you're going to burn out obviously.
Yeah, and I love that you like mentioned like, the flow, because it's like the flow and it's like it's part of life, those ups and downs. And I think that one of the biggest realizations that I had when I slowed down was it I looked at like one day randomly, like not having like recorded a podcast or posted a podcast episode, nothing. And all of a sudden, like my views were up, and I was like, oh, like my work didn't stop even though I slowed down. But it
Mm-hmm.
felt like because I didn't have the masculine energy, I wasn't doing anything. And it felt like I was like sitting, not doing anything. But
Yeah,
my
and
my work didn't stop.
yeah, and I think that's again part of the hustle culture, which like don't stop. Or especially now with the internet and everything, like, oh, if you stop posting, your views are going to go down the algorithm or whatever. It is, it's like they make you feel like you need to be posting, or just go 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 all the time, because if not, you're going to fail, or if not, your business not gonna work. And like you said, you stop, you didn't post, but your work didn't stop, it continued. So I think we're realizing that that's not true. It's just, you know just be as authentic, and respect your flows. And even flows, I think, when we say ups and downs, we have to work on. And I mean, I talk for myself, even though I consciously know it, I think unconsciously it's still something I'm working on, as not seeing down as a negative. There's like a negative connotation to down when you talk about ups and downs.
Yeah.
So I remember I was talking with somebody else, and I was kind of drawing, and I was like, I actually prefer, instead of putting it as a chart, like, flow like that, I kind of go up, like, or like straight, like right and left. I try to change it like that, like do the wave, but instead of doing horizontally, to do it vertically, so that it doesn't feel like as a low. It just feels like, oh, left and right. It just goes this way and then goes this way, and it's a flow. But it kind of helped me change my view of, like, it's not an up and down anymore. It's like a left and right type of thing. It just, it always continues. It'll just go this way, and then you might go this way, and then but you continue going forward.
Yeah. I like that though. I like that. That is a definitely an interesting switch of concept. Like, yeah, because I haven't heard that one. The one that I have heard is like the ups and downs, but it's incrementally going up.
Oh, okay.
So it's kind of like, for those who are listening and not watching, basically like imagine a graph, and the line is vertical, no, diagonal, totally messed this up, diagonal, and there are waves going along that diagonal. So even though there's ups and downs, you're continuously going up. And that when I heard that resonated in the sense of growth and evolution. So when you are healing, like, even though there's dips and things feel hard, you're still going upwards.
Yeah.
You're never going backwards. You're not like, all the work you've done so far it's not erased. It's there, even though
Mhm.
sometimes it feels like you haven't moved forward at all. So that's like one concept I've heard. But I do like yours because it's like, it's that left to right, but there's nothing wrong with left and right. Like, there's no
Exactly.
negative connotation to it. You're just like, oh, it's today I'm going right, and then in a week I'll be in left, and then it's like, okay, cool, like, whatever, let's see where life goes.
Yeah, exactly. You're gonna sway either right or left, and then eventually you'll come back on the line, and then you'll go left and or right, whatever the other one is. And yeah, but you still always go forward,
Yeah.
and you never. It's just changing, and it sounds simple, but it's not as easy to do. It's just changing the connotation for ourselves. Obviously, the goal is in society, but for ourselves, the connotation we have with certain words or certain expressions, or just switching little things that'll make you change your mindset and make you see things a different way, and maybe unconsciously you won't register it as something bad.
Yeah, and I love that you brought that up, because like, for me, that's huge. Like, I love dissecting words and sayings and sentences, and really like going down to the bare bones of it, of like,
Mm-hmm.
wait, what definitions am I putting, what meanings am I putting on this, what meanings are other people putting on this that I resonate with? But then it's like, well, wait, what's the actual meaning, and what do I want to take from this, what do I want to leave, like, how can I play around this so that it feels good and it doesn't feel ick? Because I think I remember it was from one of our sessions that I think I asked you, what does power mean to you? Or that you had a realization around the word power being like not a positive way.
Yes, like how I viewed powerful people, and yeah.
Yeah. And it's like, but somebody else can be listening to this and they're like, oh, power is so empowering to them. It feels good. But then there's somebody else would associate it with like, the greedy, rich people trying to like, like work the, like, like kind of control everything, right? And so there's so many different versions of what a word can mean to someone.
Yeah, and that depends because that was my version, the negative version of the word power. And obviously that all comes from your growing up or your environment, what you heard or what you saw. That people, we always say kids always see and hear everything. And even though you think they can't understand or they're not listening to you, like they do, and everything came from, people in my life that, and to this day, don't like powerful people or complain or the government and, all that stuff, that I had a very negative connotation about the word power. And it's still something I'm working on because it's something that takes time, I think,
Mm-hmm.
to unconsciously, consciously I'm like, oh no, it's like that. I know now why I saw it that way and I don't view it that way. But I think, it's in something like that. Sometimes when it comes from your childhood, is in your almost your DNA.
Yeah.
So
Well, it's in
so
your
I think it takes
body,
time.
right?
Yeah.
And I find that sometimes, so as much as like people, and I mean, I focus a lot on, you know, more the mind, and like the inner child healing, and kind of like putting the logical, making sense of things that don't make sense in my coaching. But I do believe that there is other powerful tools to be used coincidingly with that, to actually physically release the those old beliefs, because as you said, you're like, you're consciously aware of it, but it's still there. There's still that feeling there. And
Hmm.
it's a matter of like finding whatever physical tool that works for you, and people use different ones. Like, is there any ones that you like really love to use?
No, that's something I haven't really explored. I mean, I've seen the term somatic exercise, I think that's how you
Yeah,
say, which I think is related to that. But no, that's something I haven't explored yet. I'm very into the mind, but the body, it's still something that's new to me when it
right.
comes to healing.
Yeah.
So yeah, I haven't used any.
Okay. Yeah, because like I've used like, I mean, I've used EFT, that one, EFT tapping, that one didn't
Oh
resonate.
yeah, of course. Yeah, sorry. Yeah, I didn't even think about that. Of course. Yeah,
Yeah.
I tap.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so that one I've used, but that one did not resonate for me.
Okay.
But I did like breath work a lot. I felt like
Mm.
that. I felt actually shifted when I like the few sessions I've done have like made huge shift within like the body feeling. And then I'll obviously like energy healing like Reiki. And
Oh yeah, I did Reiki once and I really enjoyed it.
yeah, yeah, I feel like that releases a lot. So those are like some examples for those of you that are listening, like kind of using like combining that physical with like the body with the mental, because sometimes the mental in the really like deep things, right? That is like so deeply ingrained, it's challenging to just try to figure it out just mentally.
And I just think it's not enough. I think it's the first step, but I think it's rarely ever, not final, but it's rarely ever truly healed unless you heal it in your body as well. And your
Yeah.
soul, your body, everything, like it's one thing in your head, but then some things, like you said, that are deeper inside of you, you really have to release them from your body, not just your mind.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Because then it's like I find it's like you tend to hold yourself back in like your dreams, your goals, your manifestations that you want in life. Like I know for myself, like I can easily manifest like food, like no problem. Like if I'm craving something and I like put it out in the universe, like it will find its way to me like within like a week, sometimes 24 hours, sometimes even 3 hours. It's crazy.
Wow.
But then, it's like in my mind, I see it as small, right? Like a small manifestation because doesn't cost a lot. But
Yeah, it's not the lottery.
yeah, like, but the universe doesn't understand what costs a lot and what doesn't. And then when it comes to like trying to manifest something big, such as, I don't know, new laptop, my mind kind of goes like, there's a wall. And it's because I've associated this like money and like with my manifestations,
Wow.
but the universe doesn't know that.
I was gonna say, do you think that you just created the story now that you can't manifest something big, that you can only manifest something small? Well,
Yeah,
small when it comes to money value.
yeah, exactly. But then it's just like, but the universe doesn't know that. And I think it was like Amanda Francis that said, like, manifesting $1 is the same as manifesting $10,000. There's no
Hmm.
difference. It's just like we get in our own way. But
Yeah.
it's not just mental, right? It's the physical too, like the how we feel. Because like mentally, yes, I know this. I'm talking about it, I'm aware of it. But physically, it's a challenge. It's getting my to get my energy behind it to believe it.
Yeah, yeah, it's exactly. It's like you say it, but you don't truly believe it with all of your body, like you said. Yeah, it makes total sense.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that is just like, yeah, so it is the balance of the two of like being mentally aware and knowing that all is possible, knowing that you can manifest anything you want. But if your body cannot get the energy behind it, it
And that's the hardest part for everybody because we are the not the easiest part, but we're better with our conscious mind, but it's hard with the unconscious and the body and all that stuff that we weren't giving the tools for. We were never taught, most of us that know about it or that are aware about it is because we either went into our own like self-development journey or whatever, somebody talked about it and we heard, and then we started researching, but it's not something that's common for most people. So
Yeah.
I think that's why it's also the hardest, because I, unless personally, I have the least amount of knowledge about how to get your energy behind a manifestation and your body, and how to heal through your body and all that stuff. The mind is something that I'm much more comfortable with,
Yeah.
even though I'm no expert. But the body is something that's more of a foreign concept to me, or
Yeah.
that I'm still, I started to learn about it not too long ago, so
Yeah.
it's harder for me.
Yeah. No, exactly. And I think that there are many, like, there's like, I think obviously it could be maybe more so that people feel like the same as us. And then I do think there's a portion that could be the opposite, that bodily they feel, but like they can't get their thoughts or their head around it.
Mm-hmm.
So depending on like how, I guess, like stubborn your mind is.
Yeah,
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 because
for
sometimes
sure.
if it's like too black and white, it's too like, no, like this is how it is, this is how it needs to be. There's like no other option. Then that can be a little bit more challenging to like to see a different way to view things, something a little bit differently.
Then you're
Especially,
just blocking yourself.
yeah, especially if all around you it's the same.
Yeah, that's, I think, has been my biggest challenge in life, my environment. Even we were talking about the power of words before. I I've said this, and when I talk about with my husband or like my family, sometimes I'll be like, I'm the best version of myself when I'm alone. And it's because it's the easiest, because I'm not at the level where I'm not that good, but like I know the power of words, and I know my triggers, and I in my boundaries and all that stuff, but I still have work to do when it comes to upholding all of that with other people, with my environment. Or I find it's obviously harder, because now you have different people, different beliefs, different ways of doing, and then if it's people you grew up with, or like your family, it's harder, because sometimes you automatically revert to who you were, or certain patterns, or certain ways of responding. And then sometimes I get mad at myself, and I'm like, damn it, why did I respond this way? And it's still, I find your environment, it's something that's your biggest mirror, but also it's, I find it hard
Yeah.
to really, I think that's the ultimate challenge. It's easy for you to learn all this stuff and learn about yourself and grow and change, and put boundaries, and break patterns to a certain degree. But then when you were able to uphold all of that in your environment, especially the environment that you grew up in, I think that's like the ultimate test.
Yeah. And I think that it's really powerful that you said this, because I lived in Montreal my whole life, and then I moved out to BC, and honestly that has been the biggest shift for my environment and what has brought me to where I'm at. Because, not saying that there was anything wrong with Montreal, like I love the city, it's great, like so much fun, like it has culture, there's a lot of amazing restaurants, and I have like amazing friends that are there. But it was just that environment was not what I was looking for in life. And coming out here, I find is like people don't really look at you based on what you do. They don't like, it's like, I remember like moving to Whistler was like the first question was like, do you ski or snowboard? Like that's what it, they didn't care where you work, they didn't care what you like, they just, for them, are like, which one do you do? Do you ski or snowboard? And I was like, oh, okay, cool. And meeting people and having friends for like from all ages, like literally like friends like that are 20 to 50, 60. And it's
Yeah.
like, and being able to be in these conversations and have like awesome talks and like getting to know them. And I find that's been such a huge shift. Whereas like Montreal, because I grew up there, everybody I have known were in my age group. And, like kind of like the same age group, everybody was doing some sort of like, career work, associated themselves with that career work in some form. right? It was like, I find when I
Yeah.
meet somebody, it would be like, what do you do for work, or which company do you work for, or things like that. And, kind of like, yeah, oh, buying a house, like, just doing these, like the classic, like, white picket fence. And there's nothing wrong with that, but it was just like, I wanted to break out of that. It wasn't for me. And
Yeah. Well, I mean, sorry, go ahead.
yeah, and coming here, that just like shifted that. Like, big time, I got to meet people based on like also who they are, and not so much the career, or like certain things that we define ourselves with.
Yeah, well, that's exactly why. I mean, you know this because I reached out to you, but that's exactly why I'm leaving also Montreal. It's just because it's again, it's just I want a different type of environment, but I also think that I'm at a point in my life when I really feel a pull to get out of just the environment I've been in my whole life. I feel like I'm just there. I feel like I did all the growing up or personal development. I mean, not all I could, but I've done a lot. And I just feel like I really need a change of environment. And maybe I don't relate too much to this type of environment, like the city, Montreal, like you said, the hustle culture and like the career, the buying the house, all that stuff. It's not something that I'm looking for, right now, especially. So that's why I'm, well, moving and getting out of there and, just wanting to know different types of environment to be able to choose which one I want for myself. It is very possible go to BC and finally I'm like, oh, you know what? Maybe that's not it.
Yeah,
Maybe it's not Montreal, or maybe it's not BC, maybe it's something else, or maybe, whatever. I don't know. I'll figure it out. But I 100% relate to what you were saying, about the environment and wanting to get out of it and how it impacted you. That's kind of what I want for myself.
yeah, yeah. And I think that sometimes, like, we so easily disregard our environment and how it can affect us, because as you said, it's a mirror, and it's like we're plugging into people's energies. And especially
Mm-hmm.
when, we are in that self-development world, and we're like, okay, like, we're letting go of old beliefs, we're, healing old wounds and like moving forward. And then all of a sudden, like, the people around us are like the same. And we're just like, I've done all this growth. And it's easy to sometimes like go, like, again, there's no such thing as backwards, but it's easy to like mold to, the people around you at times.
Yeah, like I said before, I think that um it's harder to finalize or something. How can I explain this? Like, let's say I heal a part of me or I change something, how I respond to a certain trigger. But if you still constantly have the trigger in your face, I feel like it's harder to finally be able to completely say, okay, I'm completely healed. And now it's so ingrained inside of me, inside of my DNA, that now it's not even an effort to
Yes.
respond this way. Like that's the not I changed the automatic response,
Yes.
and it's hard to do it when you're still, instead of it's like you have a scab and then you try to heal it, but you keep picking at it because you keep, being in the same sort of situation or facing the same trigger. So I feel like that's why I'm at the moment where I'm like, okay, I've done all this. I need to get out of that environment, be able to really um, make this now who I am and my automatic responses.
Mm-hmm.
And then no matter what environment I'm in.
Yeah.
So that
And
then if I come back to that same environment, then I'll be fine, I'll be able to handle it much better because I took a step back and I solidified that within myself.
yeah, I think that's really powerful what you just said, because that is true. Like, I know for myself, like, even just like stepping out and then coming back, if I needed to step out, I needed to like step out and like, figure some things out within me. And I know that I did do that with, like, I lived in Whistler, and then I moved to Tofino for 2.5 years, and now I'm back here. And friend groups are a lot the same, but I know I have, like, I'm still upholding my own. Whereas
Mm-hmm.
before, I would have not been able to as much hold that strength for myself.
Yeah, me too. I think that I had to adapt a lot in my life, and that makes it so that, sometimes you think it's a good thing. I mean, it's not a bad thing, but being able to adapt to different types of groups and different types of people, you're like, oh yeah, I'm adaptable. I can adapt, I can be with different types of people, and and I'm good. But sometimes that's not necessarily a good thing. It's in the sense that that's just because you mold to other people and you're not able to really uphold who you are, or how you respond to certain things. I know for myself it was the case. Before, it was very like very much a need, be liked and all that stuff from my childhood. But I realized, okay, I need to take a step back from anybody I know, any type of groups of people that I grew up with or the environment I've been in, so that I can really, determine, okay, how do I want to respond to these things, or who do I want to be? And, I want to heal whatever trauma or whatever thing I have that I feel like I need to work on, so that then I can come back to it and be able, like you said, to uphold who you are, or maybe not go back into it because you just realize that's definitely not the environment I want to be in, and that's just not for me, and that's also okay.
Yeah, exactly. There's nothing wrong with either or. And it's like, it's a matter
Mhm.
of like letting, like trusting yourself and letting the path unfold in front of you where it's meant to. And knowing that, again, every decision you've made it for yourself and your highest good. And there's no right or wrong decision. There's no I should have or I shouldn't have. It's just allowing those decisions. In every decision, there is more and more things that you learn about yourself, whether it's something not so great happens, because sometimes, yeah, we make decisions and it's like, oh no, that did not go the way I wanted it to go. um
Yeah, I think that you're able to get rid of maybe some guilt when you know that you responded in a way you wanted to respond. Like, it's not a you didn't get triggered and then responded in a way that you didn't just react. You responded. If you didn't react, you just responded, and then it doesn't go well, you're like, okay, well, at least I responded in a way that it was true to myself, and was more like my healed version, or whatever you want to call it. And then if it didn't work out, well, it didn't work out. But then if you just reacted, went back to an old pattern or whatever it might be, then you'll feel more guilt or shame, and then you'll be hard on yourself, and then it just then you can go into a spiral. So at least if you're doing it because that's how you really want to respond,
mhm,
then I think it gets rid of that guilt or shame in a situation, or if you face a trigger or whatever.
exactly. And I love that you brought that up, because like one of my biggest things is that, we're human beings and there's going to be triggers and we are going to react, and obviously we're not going to be able to heal everything and anything. It's
Hmm.
physically impossible. But it's the fact of the matter is, when you react however you react. It's what do you do after? How do you navigate this after? Do you like push it under the rug and continue doing the same pattern? Do you reflect back on it? Do you like, apologize to whoever? Like, what do you do with it? And again, even in that moment, there is no right or wrong in what you do with it. It's who you are at that time. And maybe
Hmm.
down the road, after some time, in hindsight, you'll understand why you went through what you went through and why you navigated how you navigated it. But sometimes it's in the moment, it's hard to see it in a space of a trigger.
I think that's most of the time that you only realize in hindsight. There's some maybe smaller patterns or some things that you'll be able to right away catch them on the spot and be like, oh shit, okay, like how do I deal with this now, like you said. But obviously there's so many moments that you don't know the reason why, or you don't know that this has a purpose, and you just meant to go through whatever small or big moment in your life, whether it's just a small reaction or something bigger. I've learned to always know that you're meant to be in this moment, and this happened. And even though maybe for you you're like not proud of it, or it's not the greatest moment of your life, that you're gonna learn from this, and that there's a reason, and that eventually it's gonna be a lesson, and you're gonna grow from this, and it's gonna be something that you look back on to, and you're gonna tell yourself, okay, I get it, I made a mistake, this was the reason, I was able to grow from it, let's move on.
Yeah. Exactly. And it allows that space for you to let go of it too, like down the road, once you recognize and realize like what the lesson was for yourself, or like what it was there to teach you. And then once you, and in hindsight, you're like, oh, this is why I went through, then you let it go. And then that creates space for new things to come in.
For sure. And I'm trying to work on letting it go, even though I don't know yet why, which
Right.
is hard, because you always want to have a reason for it. You're like, oh, okay, I went through this because I was supposed to meet this person, or I was supposed to, have this job or this opportunity, or just I was supposed to learn this lesson. It's obviously easier to let go at that moment, but I think I'm trying to just trust, just be like, I know this is for a reason.
Yeah.
I don't know yet. I don't know what it is yet, but I'm okay with it.
Yeah, exactly. And it's like, it's not trying to find the reason right away, because then you're forced to,
Exactly.
right? So you want to like just allow it to, because sometimes that reason can come in 5, 10, 20, 30 years from now. And
Yeah.
you're gonna be like, you're gonna find yourself in this moment and you're gonna be like, oh fuck, that's why I did this, or I went through this. And you're like, shit, okay, look where I am. And it's like, it's so it doesn't, and there might be some things that you actually never find out the reason to, and it was just something that happened.
Yeah, or sometimes there's just the reason is very like it's not this huge revelation, It's not this huge thing like, oh, I reacted to what my mom said because I was meant to find the cure for cancer. You know what I mean? Like sometimes it's just you were just meant to, it was just the universe telling you, oh, look into this. Maybe you're not fully healed, or maybe there's something to look into, and then that's it. It doesn't sometimes there's no big reason for it, and you also have to be okay with that.
Yeah, exactly. Or it's just a tiny little thing. It's like just a tiny little shift of like, oh, well, maybe I shouldn't have been an asshole in that moment. And then
Yeah,
yeah,
sometimes,
right.
yeah.
Like it's just like the tiniest thing. So it doesn't, and I think sometimes like in that self-discovery, like healing journey that we find ourselves in, like we want it to be like always this big moment, like this big breakthrough. And sometimes it's just like, oh, okay, this is it. That's all. And it's letting that go.
It's just, to be honest, I think it's addictive sometimes. Like these big moments, it's almost like, okay, all of a sudden now you're aware of so many new things and just yourself, and you realize, the big reasons for so many things in your life, and then I feel like you get addicted to this, and you always want there to be a big reason and a big revelation. And life's not like that. It's not full of big revelations all the time. Sometimes it's just life is, and that's all, and the reason for something happening is very small, and I think we sometimes need to let go of wanting big revelations all the time and big lessons, and
Yeah.
you can't go through that every single day of your life.
My God, your nervous system is like literally haywire. Yeah.
Exactly, and we look for like confirmation. Also, I realized that we were talking about tools like human design and the Enneagram and all that stuff. And I realized that sometimes it's like we want to find a reason, or we want to understand why, and we like use that. We're like, oh, we need to find why I reacted like that. Oh, it's because I'm a manifesting generator, or it's because of this. Sometimes we try to force a reason. It's like, no, maybe like you said, you were just being an asshole, or maybe, this just happened to make you realize, hey, maybe be careful when you're whatever, when you're hungry, or whatever, you don't react the right way, or just maybe have a snack in it, something so little and insignificant.
Exactly.
So yeah, I think that we need to stop wanting, we get addicted, and we need to stop wanting these huge reasons and revelations for everything in our life, because sometimes it just is, and there's not this huge thing behind it.
Yeah, and I think that the reason why, like as you said, it's like partially the fact that we get addicted to it because like, oh, we go through the shits and then this amazing thing happens at the end and we're like, oh my God, this is why I went through this shitty thing and look at how amazing this part is. Like I know for
Hmm.
me, like I went like 4 months not having a home and now I have two homes, and it was like holy shit, like within a year, like wow, like that is like huge. But then it's like it doesn't need to be all the time. And I think that what it is that with like, you know, when we follow coaches and we watch like other people in the self-development world, they constantly use the bigger examples, right? And I get it because I've used it as well. Like I, you know, and it's like, I mean, I just shared one, but it's not like it's not always like that. And I think that sometimes we trick ourselves thinking it needs to be like that, but it's not. And sometimes it's just something like that you go through, and it's just like, you know, a simple mind shift. It's a simple thing of like you letting go, and that's it. And I think like one of the things was, I remember I had a conversation with a friend, and it was to let that friendship go, and the conversation wasn't anything drastic, it wasn't anything bad, but it was something that just, it closed off our friendship, and that was okay. um
Yeah.
but it was just like, it didn't need to be earth shattering, like dramatic exit or anything like that, because like that closing of that friendship, there was, you know, it was just a letting go, and they're on their own journey and I'm on mine, and if we come together down the road, then great, but that's just all that was. And it's just
Yeah,
like,
I think that, like you said, also, because I stopped following a lot of coaches on Instagram. Well, yeah, on social media on Instagram, which is where the only ones where I follow them. I had to unfollow because, like you said, I feel like the sharing of the big things at some point, like I understand because for your business it's good and because you want to show people what this can do, you know.
hmm,
But I think it puts us in a place of lack. I think sometimes it's counterproductive because you keep seeing all these big things. And if you don't have a lot of big things or even just one huge thing happening in your life, I feel like you fall in a place of lack because you start chasing that. You start chasing this huge thing, and now you're in a energy of lack and desperation almost, you know, because you want it and now you're chasing and you're not attracting
right,
because now you just really want this thing and now you're forcing yourself to manifest and all doing all this stuff, you know, because I'm gonna manifest it, but you're not in the right energy.
yeah,
And
I'm
it's a
a meditation 24/7 all the time, like in my sleep.
exactly, and all the crystals and all the manifesting, yeah, all the meditations and manifesting and the
Crystals
journaling and
in the bra.
and the burning of my, the list that you know, at some point, then you're in the completely opposite energy that you need to be in. So then it's
Exactly.
completely counterproductive. And I posted on my Instagram on Friday. I was like, okay, I'm manifesting a surprise. I just felt it. I was like, okay, I'm manifesting a surprise today, whatever it is. And then it ended up just being a really nice conversation with strangers,
Oh, that's
and it's something so small, I had no expectations for what the surprise I was asking the
yeah.
universe for, but it makes you realize like that's also a surprise, that's also fun. And I ended up these strangers, we ended up talking that they lived in BC, and I asked them questions and they were telling me about BC, and it's a place I'm moving to, and I was like, wow, this was a really nice surprise, to meet complete strangers. They were, I don't know their age, but they were like 60s or 70s. So, and they had a lot of life experience, and I love talking to people that are older because they have so much wisdom and life experience and stories, and it just so happened that they had lived where we're moving to, so that was a really fun surprise. And it was a conversation. It wasn't, I didn't win the lottery, I didn't manifest a new car, I didn't, you know what I mean, like it was simple. But when you're just looking for the big stuff,
Yeah.
you miss all the little things, that all the surprises and all the good things that happen to you, and you get into the lack energy and you just block yourself and you're in the complete opposite energy, and then it just all of a sudden you get discouraged, and then you're like, why me? And then why it's not happening, it's not working, and you think you're broken, and all that stuff. You go into a spiral because you just keep seeing these big things, and you're trying to manifest a mansion in Beverly Hills, and you're just getting conversation with strangers, and it's not good enough for you.
Yeah. Yeah, and the thing is, it's like sometimes like we want those things to happen every day, all the time, and it's just like, well, like again, that will be overwhelmed to our nervous system. Like imagine like the universe one day is like, you win $1 million, and then the next day you're like, you won a car. The next day is like, you win this, and then oh, the love of your life, and it's like every day something new, something big is coming in. You'll be like, can you actually hold it? Like
Yeah.
really? Like when you think about it, can you actually hold the space? Can you actually hold the big things? And that is like a question I always ask myself, and I even ask my clients, is like, you want these big things, but can you actually hold it? What can you actually hold?
Absolutely. And also there's no flow then. It's just a straight line. Like there's no, like if something's just going, it's just up all the time. Like it's not gonna work. That's not real life.
No.
You need to go with the flow. You need to, it's gonna be left and right, as I like to call it. And sometimes it's gonna be right, sometimes it's gonna be left, but it's not gonna be, it's not the same thing you'll get, and it's a different direction. So you won't always get the winning the lottery or the getting a new car for free because whatever it is, you won't always get that, or the your dream job. You Like you said, you can't hold it. And first of all, what's your life's gonna be over in like 3 weeks. You're gonna get everything you want, and now what? you know?
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah. Oh man. Oh, I love this conversation. And I am gonna wrap it up because we've been talking for an hour already.
Oh my god, already?
I know. It's like really interesting because like normally I'm like when I talk with people, you don't pay attention on time frame, but because this is a podcast, I'm like, oh, I need to like just like keep my eye on the clock. Thank you so much for this conversation. I think that we spoke in so many different topics and so many different things, which I love, and I cannot wait for all of the listeners to listen to it. Obviously, whoever got to this point already listened to it, but I wanted to say thank you so much. And I know that, right now you're not in the space of like, calling yourself a life coach, but if there is a space that, if people resonate with what you spoke about today, somewhere where they can find you, do you mind sharing that with the audience?
Of course. I mean, I only have my Instagram. It's my full name, Tatiana Navarro M. And yeah, just I don't have any title right now. I just like to share life and whatever makes me feel good and makes me feel warm. So if you want to follow, definitely, come along for the journey and the move.
Yeah.
Well, I'll make my way to you to BC. They can follow that.
I cannot wait. I think it's gonna be so much fun. I'm just like, it's really funny because I don't think I've known anybody from Montreal making their way here. So you're gonna be the first, and I'm just like,
Yeah,
yeah.
I'll let you know how that goes. But thank you so much for having me. It was really fun, and the hour went by, it flew by.
I mean, it did flip by. I was like, oh my God, it's already an hour. Like, what? So thank you. And
Thank you.
stop recording.